Okay, the first thing I want to talk about was the Battle of the Jabs. Bud Crawford mentioned in the post-fight interview that was a key element in their training camp, taking away Spence's jab and using it against him and exploiting it. Let's take a look at one of the first jabs in the fight from Spence. To me, this is a picture-perfect jab. His lead foot comes forward a bit, small step forward, right? Defensively responsible, holding the phone, and that jab is, quick, straight to the point. He's not loading up on it, and he even rocks back a little bit afterwards just to be gauging the distance. If this is round one, I'm really happy with that jab. So already in round one, Bud starts to get the timing of Spence's jab, which is a bad sign because even in the first round, Spence wasn't loading up on the jab as much as he was farther down the line, which we'll look at. But Bud's already shooting his jab, catching Spence's right here with his glove. He's pairing his jab, shooting his, and catches Spence right there. You can see it again. Spence jab. Bud catches it with his glove, returns his, and you can see which jab has so much more effect. I mean, granted, Spence's didn't land, but you can see the effect that it has on Spence. And here's a key point why. You have to look at the footwork. So Spence loves to take a hard step forward and jab or double jab to set up his attack. But as we'll see, that's going to be kind of his own kryptonite. His strength is going to become his kryptonite. So take a look at this. Spence is used to double jabbing and people retreating. But Bud already has his timing from about, halfway through the first round. This one might be the second, I forget. But Bud's actually going to take a small step forward as Spence jabs. So this jab is going to feel like most fighters' right hand because Spence is moving into it. And Crawford is subtly shifting his weight forward, right? You can watch, especially if we could see his lead foot. He's coming forward, just as Errol is as well. That kind of shot, that especially the jab, it can feel like a right hand. So he has his timing. He's catching Spence's jab with his left hand, and the right jab is going straight down the pipe and catching Spence. This is already in I believe, the first or second round. Here we go again with Bud in the high guard, and as we'll see later on, Bud is really intelligent in the high guard. One thing about Bud is he's always looking, he's always watching. So even though he looks, pretty covered up right here, if we could see his eyes from his angle, his eyes are probably looking right at Errol, either, at his face, at his shoulders. So Errol sees Bud covered up, but with Bud, almost nothing is ever as it seems. He's always thinking steps ahead, whereas Errol is not. So Errol comes with his jab, double jab, same thing. Crawford's going to pull and then jab with him while catching. And look at the effect it has on Errol. Another thing about this is, so look at the footwork. Crawford's moving back right at the moment that Errol jabs, and Crawford's going to jab as well. A subtle shift, again, forward in the momentum. That kind of jab is actually a devastating shot. And it had an effect on Errol the entire night. Another thing about this is, pre-fight, I heard one of Bud's coaches talking about, they were yelling as Bud was warming up for the fight, real estate, fight where you want, champ. And by neutralizing Spence's jab, that, creates that opportunity for Bud to control the real estate. It's these small things. Because if you watch this, Errol's committed to attack. He's used to double jabbing right here, getting someone on the ropes, then starting the body attack. Body, head. Then he's starting to beat him up. The other person's like down points and is dissuaded. But with Bud countering that jab, now Spence is out of position. Bud is in position to punch. Spence is out of position to punch. That's how you control real estate, because now you have the upper hand and you can move more quickly. Spence is going to have to readjust with the footwork. That's, really how real estate, you can see, Now Spence is on the back foot. So that's part of the reason why Bud was able to, control where the fight took place and very rarely was on the ropes the entire fight. Here's another example. Spence jab falls short. Bud's jab gets there quickly. Another thing that I want to talk about is the lead foot of Spence with his jab. So Spence was throwing past round one only one type of jab. A hard jab with a big step forward. Look at his lead foot. Strong step forward and a hard jab. So, that's something that pretty much every boxing coach tells you to do when you go into the gym. Hard jab and step with your lead foot as you jab. It's all great at a certain level, but when you have someone like Terrence Bud Crawford in front of you, you can't just think, oh, I'm gonna give a hard jab and that's gonna be it, and that's gonna dissuade him and he's not gonna make adjustments. With Spence's jab, it was just much too telegraphed, and he didn't. He switched it up, going body and head, yes, but it's the same speed of the jab, so it's a big problem. Here's another instance. It's the exact same sequence over and over again. That's something about fights. It's like there's sequences that repeat and repeat and repeat. Not very often. Sometimes it happens, but not very often is it like, oh, someone got knocked out. Not very often is it that someone gets knocked out off a sequence that happened just for the first time that time. It does happen, don't get me wrong, but more often than not, it's a same sequence that a fighter's doing that another fighter exploits, and it's the same thing. We'll look at it for the knockdowns with Crawford against Spence. So here we go. The same thing I've been saying. Look at Crawford's lead glove, if you can even see it. Look at Crawford's lead glove over here, right? Look at Crawford's lead glove right over here. Catching Spence's jab, delivering his own. Crawford's is straight jab, and he's turning it at the same time. It's a devastating punch, and you can see Errol's face right in the photos in the broadcast that night. It was completely beat up. Here it is again. Like I'm saying, it's the same sequence over and over again, but catching with his rear hand, and delivering his jab with his lead hand. And just look at the effect that it has on Spence. Completely out of position and able to go right again. Look, it's the same exact sequence. Back to back within, 3 seconds? Boom. Out of position. Tries again. Boom. Again. He took away Spence's jab and he exploited it, just as he said. Same exact sequence. Bud catches. Spence does not. So Spence was not able to make an adjustment. Look at how that just affected the real estate. Spence was really not able to make an adjustment. He needed to have shown different speeds of jabs. Feints. There was no feints from Spence. And here's Crawford just catching Spence without Spence even jabbing. But this kind of shotgun jab, catching the jab while jabbing yourself, reminds me of one of the great jabbers, Gennady Golovkin. So Triple G was famous for this jab. You can see it against Daniel Jacobs. Throwing his jab, catching with the rear hand the opponent's jab, and jabbing at the same time. And of course, Triple G is known for how hard his jab was, and fighters would say it felt like a right hand. It's because it's a combination of you stepping forward, your opponent also stepping forward. You're not getting hit, they are. It's momentum, it's physics, it's all of that. And it's a great jab that Crawford was utilizing. You can see he does it there, he does it again right there. You can see the lead hand right there. Sorry, I keep saying lead hand. The rear hand catching Jacob's jab and returning his own. It was a masterful performance by Bud Crawford, full stop. But after the fight, I was left very disappointed with Spence's game plan, and a bit confused about to what the game plan actually was. So let's take a look at what I think, what Spence was trying to do and why it was ineffective. So Spence came out with just a super one-dimensional game plan, which might work on a, I guess an national amateur level and a lower pro level, but it seemed very uneducated, even compared to previous fights of his. I mean, this is a man who went to the Olympics. The game plan made no sense to me. So we can look at some of the footage and see what he was trying to do. So double jab. Here's the first instance in the first round. This is the most success he had with his game plan. See a strong jab coming forward. Another jab. Gets Bud to the ropes. Starts to be able to work a little bit to the body. That's kind of the Spence that we know, right? Bullying people with a hard jab, getting him to the ropes, and then working. Right? But that's the first round. That's the most success he had with that attack. Let's look again at one of the big problems with the game plan. His telegraphing of the jab. Look at the big step that he takes over here, right, with his foot. Just in the big shoulder motion he takes with his jab. Crawford is an elite counterpuncher. He's going to pick up on the timing. Look at all that time to react by Crawford. Look at the leg of Spence. He's really covering ground with that jab. Right? So it's the beginning of the fight. He doesn't get countered, but he will in the future, as I'll show you. But, strong jab, strong jab. That's great for the amateur level, but you need to have some wrinkles to your game. You need to be throwing different speeds of jab. Yeah, you're mixing up body and head, but if you throw the same speed over and over again against Terrence Crawford, you really thought you were going to win? So here we go again. Jab, head, the left hand to the body. So that's the other part of the game plan. It's a fast jab, fast, but hard jab, left hand to the body. And then we'll look at it, later there's a variation. But double jab, left hand to the body. Jab, left hand to the body. Let's look at a few more instances. I'm disappointed by the Spence game plan because I don't understand how you can think, all right, we're going to double jab him, hard jab, throw a left hand to the body, get him to the ropes and work. It's like, at this level, I'm disappointed by the game plan of Spence and the execution of it. Maybe he wasn't able to actually execute the game plan, but I'm disappointed by the performance because it's one thing at a national tournament or the beginning of the pro stages to just kind of come in off a double jab and throw a left hand, but this is Bud Crawford. You had in reality, you had 5 years to think about Bud Crawford, and you knew you were going to fight him one day. Watch his fights, look at the intelligence. This game plan doesn't reflect that at all. You can't just throw a jab from too far away, too slowly, but hard a bunch of times, and then throw a left hand and think that that's going to beat Bud Crawford. It really, very disappointed by that. But here we can see the hard jab and the left hand to the body. I mean, look at this is really not good from Spence. Look at this. Look at where the left hand's coming from. Look where Bud is. Spence is not even reading what's going on. He's just, going through the motions of trying to, bully. But this is terrible. I think this was like the third round or something. There's no need for that. Again, double jab, left hand to the body. Look how overreaching Spence is from the beginning. And overreaching against Bud Crawford should have been one of the main pillars of we're not going to do that in the camp, to have a great game plan. But there was no even semblance of a great game plan from the beginning, in my opinion. There it is. So this is, I think, the first round of the second round. And Bud has already picked up on the timing of the jab. Of that, And this is actually a good instance from Spence where he actually shows and then goes. Usually he's just lunging in with a hard jab, but it's, Crawford has the timing. The only problem with this was Bud wasn't fully in the high guard and Errol wasn't able to actually make contact. So Bud was in the high guard, and if he was in the high guard, Spence is just showing the jab right here would have been great because it would have blocked Bud's vision. Right here, it would have blocked his vision. Then you can shoot the jab down to the stomach. That happens all the time. But the problem is Bud actually comes out of the high guard. So he has full vision right now, but Spence is not reading that. He's just doing things, whereas Bud is always reading things and watching. And Bud will stop an attack if he realizes that, oh wait, it's not the right thing to do based on what's happening in that second. Whereas Spence, he just keeps jabbing. Look at the vision, though, that Bud has. Bud's not blinded by that first jab. That putting in front of the high guard. It's the right idea, but it wasn't there. Boom. So now Bud already starting to counter. I think that's round 1 or 2. Let's keep going. Left hand to the body. Bud's now countering. Hard. I think that just glanced. This is, I think, round 1 or 2. But if you're Spence, if this is round 1 or 2, okay, he already has my timing. You need to understand that. Why does he keep doing the same thing over and over and over again? The hard jab from too far away, and a left hand to the body, and not even a straight left hand, a looping left hand against Terrence Crawford that's going to be so much longer to deliver. And you know Terrence Crawford is just going to be watching you and counterpunching you. It blows my mind a little bit, unfortunately, and I really do like Spence. So, yeah. Anyway, Terrence has his timing. This is round 2. He's already countering with a backhand. Let's look at it again. There's so many, guys, I even cut out some of the instances of this because it would get too monotonous, but it's the exact same thing over and over again. And it's one thing to do it if you're having success, but like I showed you in the first clip, the very first clip of the first round was the most success he had, and it amounted to about like 3 or 4 pity pat body shots. So here we go again. Hard jab. That was a better jab, actually. Left hand to the body. Crawford's ready for it. Counter. But Spence doesn't make adjustments. He just keeps doing the same thing. Hard jab from too far away. He's trying to put that left hand in. Bud's countering. Didn't land that time, right? But that's the kind of things as an elite fighter, you don't go, oh, well, it didn't land that time, so I'm good. No, you go, okay, he's trying to counter over the top. I need to be aware of that. But Spence is not doing that. Guys, against Terrence Crawford, that's the jab you're throwing. I don't understand it. Boom, boom. There's the knockdown. But as we can see, that knockdown, could have been the clip before, right here. It's almost the exact same thing, right? It could have been that knockdown. It was just a matter of time. It was the same sequence over and over again, right? Look at it. It's like almost the exact same thing. And because Spence, it's not necessarily a vicious knockdown, and part of it is due to Spence's the lack of footwork. I mean, look at this jab. You're going to be so off balance after that, trying to pull back in a straight line, and Bud clips you. And there's your knockdown. Right? So let's look at a few more counters now that Bud has his timing. Now that Bud has his timing, it's like a kid in a candy store. He's just countering it all day. There's that good jab. So Spence, it's hard to see from this angle, but Spence is coming in again with that jab to the body. Bud's just going to move around and use his lead hook to control Spence. Right? Control Spence. Look how out of position Spence is off that jab. And look at Bud. In position, ready to punch. And now he's able to work. Right? Points. Same thing. Countering over the top. Trying to come in with that jab. This is a combination of both things that I've talked about. The poor game plan and the jab. So jabbing and catching. And the left hand over the top. Same exact thing. Guys, it's the same thing over and over again. Spence is making no adjustments. It's really baffling to see. There it is. If you're Spence, I don't know what rounder this is, but I don't know why you're thinking your face is all bloodied up and you're thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna jab his body then pull out in a straight line because that's been working for me. Why is he doing that? That was almost a knockdown right there. He was definitely hurt. Here's a little bit better from Spence, right? He jabs and then he keeps a second jab. But the second jab is more intelligent actually because it's not trying to be a super hard jab that's going to knock him out. It's more like a Larry Holmes jab, what we call it, the beach towel jab. You're just flicking it out there because you're trying to get somewhere. You're not just trying to hit him with a hard jab and then work to the body. That's more like amateur stuff. So it's actually better here from Spence. But the problem is Bud, as we've said, and we'll talk about this more for another knockdown, he has great vision in the high guard. He's not just covering up, he's covering up and watching. And he's keeping his base. So he's ready to punch right there. Spence is not used to that. Now Spence is in a bad distance. Bud's able to counter. Look at that. Beautiful. Off that jab from too far away, lunging in with it. Look how much, Spence is really lunging. Bud, beautiful counter. At this point, Bud might as well be James Toney. Boom. The second part of the game plan for Spence camp, from what I saw, is a really common game plan, which is you throw your backhand to the body, and then you mix it up, and then you go to the head. And the other fighter gets used to trying to defend the body. They bring their guard down, you catch him to the head. We see it all the time. But, to be honest, okay, simple things can work all the time, for sure. But it wasn't working. It's a pretty obvious game plan in terms of the pros, in terms of elite level boxing. And it wasn't working. So you didn't have a plan B or a plan C against Terrence Crawford. You just thought, oh, I'm going to throw him to the body and then throw it to the head, and that's going to get Terrence Crawford. It didn't make any sense. But that was one variation that Spence did that seemed to be a clear part of the game plan, which is mixing up the left hand to the body, which we already watched, and mixing up with shots to the head. So let's look at a few of those. So there's that jab, left hand to the head. This is in round one, guys. This is the first left hand that Errol Spence throws. Look at it. Why? Like this isn't the amateurs. This isn't someone that you go, oh, I'm just gonna go in and knock him out and really try. It's like, why are you throwing that looping of a shot against Terrence Crawford in the first round? It's not time for that yet. Terrence Crawford is not going to get hit with that shot. And he didn't all night. Right? There's his lead hand. There's him blocking Spence's rear hand. Right? This is the first left hand that Spence throws. And look at, he's putting everything into it. It's like he thought he should be throwing that if he had him hurt on the ropes. Right? This is the first round. Nothing indicated that he should throw that. But he did. Bud is unfazed. Here we go again. Looping left hand. You can say, okay, that one landed. But he kept throwing the looping left hand. He never threw it straight. It was really weird, guys. I don't really understand it. Here it is again. Why? He's not just throwing it fast and straight. He's throwing a looping left hand against Crawford. That's so counterable, and that's the next knockdown we're going to see is because of that. You can hear the shock in my voice. I really didn't understand it. This one's the beginning of the fight. He's able to work off it a little bit, But here we go again. Look, I think this is the second round. Bud's already expecting it. Watch. You see the reaction from Bud? Look at where Spence is. Hasn't even thrown the punch yet. Bud's already there. He already knows what's coming. So he's going to catch it first, Catch it, catch it, catch it. Make sure he has the timing. Then he's going to start to counter. Right? So that was better, actually, from Spence. He feinted. And then the same thing. He catches him with it there. But once again, doing the same thing over and over again. Here it is again. Just no variation. A huge looping left hand to the head after you've thrown a few to the body that Terrence was already countering. It makes no sense, you guys. Look at this. But look at Terrence's. Right? Look at his hand. He already knows. He already knows. It's there. It didn't land. You probably hear the astonishment in my voice, and that's because, to me, I've seen Errol better than this. Granted, he hasn't faced too many southpaws, and I wonder if that was a big deficiency. But, I mean, take a look. I went back to Chris Van Heerden. It's kind of the only southpaw I can really remember of note. But why didn't he throw one left hand like that? He didn't throw one the entire fight. Not one left hand, just straight down the pipe. You don't even want to see what success you have. You just want to throw that giant looping left hand from round one over and over again. It doesn't make any sense. I really don't understand the thinking. Look at Terrence's left hand. It's almost, that's some George Foreman stuff. It's so obvious what's coming to him. And he's slick, we already know that, but jeez. There's that left hand again. Okay, so here's the knockdown. So in this one, Terrence, I think, is expecting hard jab, left hand to the body, right? That Errol has been throwing. So you can see counters with that uppercut. And Errol does land a good shot. Like I said, that mixing it up from body to head, it's a classic game plan. He had success with that one time. But if you think you're going to beat Terrence Crawford off just getting hit, and then I'm going to hit one shot, as we can see with this knockdown, it didn't work, and Errol got knocked down. Just looking from another angle, right? Look at Terrence's eyes. Just watching. There's a hard jab, that left hand to the body. He already knows what's happening. So there's that uppercut. Boom. So Errol does land. Terrence thought it was going to be the body. But as you can see, another knockdown. So guys, with a counterpuncher like Terrence Crawford, it was only a matter of time before Errol Spence got knocked out. Bud had his timing, knew what he was doing, was exploiting it, and Errol refused to make adjustments. Here we go. We know what's happening. Look at this left hand. Look at it. Bud's sitting there in the high guard saying, "Yes, please. Thank you. That'll be great." Boom. Classic thing, a lot of your coaches call it different things. Catch and shoot. The moment he touches your gloves, you shoot your own back. Boom. Massive counter. Right? And this is the beginning of the end of the fight. Look at this. Bud is waiting. If we could see his eyes, he's just watching. Catch and shoot. Stop throwing that left hand, Errol. And there's the end of the fight. So like I said, masterful performance from Bud Crawford, but I am very disappointed with the Spence camp and Spence. I'm wondering if maybe that knockdown in round 2, he wasn't able to regain his mental composure to execute a game plan. I'm hoping that's the case, because I'm hoping they had something more intelligent. You knew you were on a collision course with this man for what? At least 5 years. You've probably been aware of him since the amateurs, really. You've had time to study him, see what has success, what doesn't, and the game plan was just a complete total letdown. The lack of adjustments, I really don't understand. He just thought he could come in, hard jab him, and bully Terrence Crawford, and, well, he thought wrong.